Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.
All right. I have Jesse Glass, lead AI researcher at DecideAI. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Joseph.
All right. Well, I'm thrilled to have you because there's so much to unpack and think about. But before we begin, I always kind of like to create sort of context for this. And with that, the way that I like to think about this is that with the rapid rise of AI, some are warning that the risks of sensitive data exposure have increased, as AI systems tend to lack the security, the privacy, the resilience needed to protect it. So some have been advocating, and I'll be talking, I do this too frequently, and I've been doing it for the last probably 5 years, that the only true path forward to a trustless internet is with blockchain, which offers zero trust by design. So my guest, Jesse, as you know, says zero trust, decentralized systems that eliminate reliance on external APIs, third-party hosting, and opaque identity layers are vital as AI use cases expand to include things like medical AI and supply chain risk or data-sensitive LLMs. And I might add even fintech in that space as well with DeFi. So, all right, with that as context, before we start, I would love to hear more about your backstory and what led you to become the lead AI researcher at Decide AI.
Yeah, so my background is in AI. Real math heavy background. I focused in bipartite ranking optimization for my doctoral dissertation. And um, I was doing, pretty standard applications of AI in pharmaceuticals. And I was just really intrigued by the internet computer and its capabilities to understand like what the true limits of blockchain are, because we know that it's going to be a critical way of tracking data and ensuring authenticity and rewarding users and participants in the new digital era. So just getting my feet wet and doing as much as I could, I connected with the founder, and he's like, "Dude, put GPT on chain. Like, let's get it going." So I was the first to get that on chain. I've pushed a lot of forward, uh, a lot of open source resources for deploying your own AI on the internet computer, and we're really pushing forward on like state of the art AI on the internet computer. So it's one thing to have AI on blockchain, but we have a competitive identity solution. So it's like far exceeding open source state of the art at facial embedding uniqueness. And I'm really proud to have a model that's competitive with the best Web 2 models running on a blockchain.
That's amazing. All right. So I definitely want to sort of go down the path of several things in there. But first, I always love the context here because you've been in this space for a while. Were you surprised by the sort of OpenAI ChatGPT moment in November of 2022, or had you been working with GPTs before? And I've been talking about myself, OpenAI back to 2018, but most people weren't aware of it. So had you messed around with some of these things before it became like the thing for people to follow and participate in?
I mean, I was aware of attention transformers for as long as anyone could be, right? It was a hot paper when it came
Yep.
out. And I had been long working in like embedding space for language, right? It like started with Word2Vec, and I was caught by surprise because I sort of had like hit into like my wavelength of what I was working on at my job, and I wasn't really focused in sort of these like what to me was esoteric, which was like language prediction, haha, like when are we going to get that working well? And then so like when it was started doing stuff, I was definitely surprised, and then it like reinvigorated the whole like sentience stuff, like what is AI? Because AI sort of like reemerged as like a hot word, right? Like we always use machine learning when I was studying, because it's like this is what it is. We have data. We're trying to fit a model that will predict on that data or data that's like it. And we're trying to abstract away from this idea of intelligence. We want models that are reliable, like predictors. Um, and then just this idea that if you can predict next word, all of a sudden you're like doing this. We have so much data that you can do something that people slightly unexpected. Not for everyone, I guess.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, it's rare that I speak to too many people that are at where you were, messing around with these things, and all of a sudden, like, yeah, you see it, but we're all, I think, a little bit surprised by some of it. Um, all right, so you had talked about the internet computer. For people that are less familiar with that, can you describe what that is and how people might interact with it and the robust nature of that ecosystem as a blockchain, but also a lot more built into that?
The internet computer is a distributed ledger technology like Ethereum or Bitcoin, but it's designed to run full stack applications. And so this helps it from having like middleman attacks where the URL for Curve is hijacked, and then you connect your wallet to it, and you're interacting with like false contracts. So um, we want to do the similar process for AI so that the AI that's going to be controlling critical data or functions for finance is tamper proof. And so the internet computer is a blockchain like the others, harder to run a node as you have to go through like a more complicated process. And you access it via like standard HTTP calls right through boundary nodes. And it's like it feels like a regular internet, but it's actually a sophisticated distributed ledger to minimize trust assumptions.
Not to get too into the weeds, that was amazing, but not to get too far down that path. How does that differ than what like Near is building?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a sort of an endless amount of like product research I could do onto every teams, and Near was like a big AI push, and the team has a lot of AI experience. I haven't seen anything close to what we're doing on the internet computer on any other blockchain. So
Oh,
that's to say, no, I haven't seen AI actually run on any other blockchain at this
okay.
point. So if you're integrating AI at like some sort of fundamental level or unique applications of AI, that's neat. But like what actually like transform linear operations are running on blockchain, I don't know of any of it.
Okay. No, that's fair. And I definitely appreciate that context for it. So going back too many years, I would go out and talk about AI and blockchain and how at some point in time they will kind of come together. And I would always say that AI is sort of like the reasoning part and blockchain was, and I'm super simplifying this, I know, is like the reasoning part, and then blockchain was like the database side, and that working together in concert, they could do tons of cool things. What you just described in your initial discussion was fascinating because you're talking about how you were able to take some of that AI and put it natively onto the blockchain. That's the part I guess I haven't seen or interacted with myself. I haven't built anything in that space. Tell me what that looks like and what that would like, how you would someone would interact with that, if you could, please.
Yes, I mean, so it's the idea is to have it as guardrailed as possible, so it's only interacted with in the ways that we want, but also in ways that a user could verifiably see what's going on with the data, so that there's not like some sort of hidden process. Normally, if your data is on a server, you just have to trust, hey, no one's tampering with my data, no one's looking at my data, making copies of my data. Um, what is the model like that went the data provenance that went into training this AI? So the generic feeling on the internet computer is the goal is to make it so that users really don't have a friction. So that we don't have some sort of like what is using AI on the internet computer. It's the same thing as using AI on the internet right now. That's the goal, right? And right now, as at Decide AI, we use a combination of Web 2 and Web 3. So it's like extremely important that we maintain that experience. But I'm just like really proud of every single step we take towards state of the art AI running in like a timely, usable manner on a blockchain as it gets us to that next level goal of like provable transparency, provenance of data, like safety.
Excellent. Okay. And not to put you on the spot, but I'm kind of curious. Do you have any like basic examples of how what that would look like?
Well, so we have the image, the Decide ID stuff.
Okay.
So we have like a full stack solution where we have several AI models that have to go through the process. The image is captured still using Web2 liveness detection, and then we can take the image and go through several AI models. So we start with the state-of-the-art open source, and we iteratively refine them and improve them until they're outperforming them. And like right now, we're at like a open source was at like a 62 average precision for the best open source, and we have it at a 92
Wow.
out of 100. So we're pushing to get to that next level. But yeah, I mean, right now my focus on the back end, you can see if you look through some of our open source repos, is like a candle crates. So candle is like the Hugging Face supported implementation of a minimalistic PyTorch. I don't know if you've heard of PyTorch. PyTorch is like
But
the
I'm
meta
not.
supported framework for AI development. So like most AI developers develop in Python, which is this whole thing where people like always talk trash on Python. But
Yes.
the PyTorch is like really successful. There's a bunch of reasons why. There's tons of articles on like why PyTorch is so successful. Um, but essentially it dominates. Like TensorFlow is the Google one, but PyTorch was the Meta one, and almost everybody uses PyTorch. And so Hugging Face has this candle crate, which I'm trying to contribute to in as much as I can. That essentially reproduces all the core critical functionality of PyTorch in Rust. So on the internet computer, there are two main development. You can use more than these languages, but the two main supported languages are Rust and Matogo, the native. And so my focus is in Rust because there's already a world of tooling in Rust, and it's like, to me, it's the best language available.
Okay. No, all right. There's definitely some things in there that I was not aware of. So maybe taking like two or three steps back, Decide AI, at its core, what is it building? Like, are there multiple different products, or is it a primary product space, or are they trying to build it more like of a platform?
So the goal of the platform, like like beyond a suite, like a infra. I'm always think of it as my goal is like an infrastructure layer. Um, so examples how to build code, provided tooling to train your own model, like little silos of data sets for communities that will collectivize and sort of essentially tap into all the best that Hugging Face has, but community control and ownership of data weights, like model architectures, and I said data weights, but I really meant like model weights,
Okay.
like so that you can own a model. So there's this whole thing about like open source, which I'm a big proponent of open source. I love it, but there's also like a value to owning models. That's why there are proprietary companies. Like you want something that like acquires value. So if your data is used to train a model that's like the best model in the world, and then everybody else just gets access to it, well, that was your data. They didn't provide, other people didn't provide that data. So if you're part of a community that contributes to a model, we can provide like provenance guarantees of where that data came from and control over using that model, with in this way that's like not closed source. So sort of like the blockchain provides this like unique like gray area intermediary where you don't have to completely open source everything. You can keep the model weights like closed, but you can still provide guarantees about like where it came from, what it's doing, and so on. So there's like this balancing act that you can't have elsewhere that I want to explore
So I'm kind
in
of curious
advance.
about that. No, this is very cool. I've had a few conversations with people about this recently, and then probably 5 years ago, in some senses, about ZKP, so zero knowledge proofs. Is what you're describing some of that? Because what you're taking is some data. If you want provenance of something, I know where this came from, where this data set came from, but I don't want to necessarily disclose specifically, but I'm able to prove that it actually is something. So it's encrypted. So you're able to do that. Are you leveraging some of those tools, or is that something totally completely different?
No, that's not different. Right now, I haven't done any actual integration of ZKPs. I've done like toy projects running ZKPs on the internet computer, which is kind of fun to be able to run not just the verifier but the prover on chain, which is typically not how you would use it. But this is more so the idea that the internet computer comes with guarantees already about what's going on and transaction, like a ledger of what's going on. So it's just like you can make everything. You can say like, here are all my functions to interact with my data, and then all the calls to that function are clear.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's definitely helpful. Um, so one of the things that I grapple with, and I'm sure most people do, especially someone in your space, um, are those guardrails that you talked about, and establishing those. Who sort of creates those, and how do we make sure that they stay in place throughout the full stack? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, as things go forward and things get much faster and more complicated, I'm just kind of curious, what's your take on how guardrails remain in place? And they're not something that people who I know a lot of people that try to break those things just for fun. I see it all the time. So how do we protect against that, I guess?
Yeah, I saw a post the other day that had me thinking about this exact topic, um, which was about like controlling like fertilizer supplies rather than controlling like how to make a bomb. It's
Uh,
like the the answer isn't in controlling knowledge, it's in controlling the ability to execute problematic things. Uh, so just the idea of not not guardrails. Like I get that there's like inappropriate stuff and that like we worry about deepfakes, but I would hope my plan is to try to combat things like that with blockchain, rather than some sort of like um, restriction on AI usage. Because it's like everyone, there will always be people that are able to use this AI. It's going to get harder and harder to control. Um, it's a black box, and it's amazing. But the more you try to put guardrails on it, the more you're just going to have like very few players and like government control over stuff. And in general, my take is that regulations can be good, but that government tends to make things worse.
yeah, and I know what you're saying. And it's such a complicated and it's getting increasingly more so space. Um, and then the speed that it's going in certain directions. So one use case that I sort of think about a lot is let's say the Associated Press puts out an article, and the article is about whatever it might be. Maybe it's a future president saying something, and you can now look at that, and let's say that Associated Press has a specific cryptographic signature. And they have produced this article, and you're able to go back and verify that that came from the Associated Press. To me, that's something that leverages maybe that article is now being produced by AI, and so that agent that created that, you're able to go back and say, okay, that was created by some agent from the Associated Press. That's provable. You can use the blockchain for that. Um, do you think that that's something that you're going to start to see promulgated throughout all sorts of data and information going forward, or do you think that's still too complicated?
I think that it's gonna just come. It's gonna feel like it happened suddenly because I feel like this is just like already a large effort that like this is what we are all aware that we need, and um, I think many teams are ultimately working on this type of what is the best solution for this.
You're the third conversation I've had in the last month about this, which is stunning in and of itself, because I feel like it's something that's been a desperately needed thing to be discussed, but no one, you look at it across the board, and I spend a lot of time on all angles of information and data and technology. And for forever, I haven't heard many people talking about this, but now it seems like it's starting to get the collective consciousness of people. And I still don't see it in the prime like media, like, oh, this is something that we're talking about. But I think it's going to have to start to sneak in there because it is that important, especially like Sybil attacks and all these other things and data. How do you know if it's real or not? And this is a sort of a solution. I think it's fascinating that you guys are going down this page, down this space. All right. Anything else that you wanted to talk about? Anything you're working on that you'd like to share?
I'm just heads down on ID and the abstractions thereof. So like all the benefits to AI on blockchain that having this strong use case of ID, which is Sybil resistance and potentially like social ID recovery, that it would provide to this domain.
So, no, and that's great. I think that that's what we need. We need much more of that. So it's fantastic that you're doing this and sharing all that you're working on right now. How long do you think it is before this becomes commonplace for people that they're not going to know what blockchain is, or they barely even know, maybe I'm not trying to do anybody disrespect, but they know what AI is because then maybe they've gone to ChatGPT, but that's all they really know. They don't know all this other stuff that's going on. When is it going to become just so native to different applications, to different services that people don't even have to think about it?
Yeah. So one of the things I was thinking about when you earlier and sort of through this through this question is the idea of is like it's going to be on the application services that provide things to say like we only provide news articles that have this cryptographic proof of authenticity, right? And so it's like, and then it's as a user you would use the websites that provide that guarantee. And something like the Internet Computer is the place where you can have one-stop shop, full stack application that's serving things that you know are guaranteed to have this constraint on it. And so I think that there'll be innovations like apps focused, sort of like open chat, but like expanded to social media type, like personal experience, and then like other larger like institutions will start having to like pay for as a service, like, hey, help me integrate this ability to prove cryptographically that this was authored and when it was authored and the various aspects that went into it. And so I think that it's coming soon and that it's going to be fun.
Yeah. So the last thing that I'll say about that, because I think it's fascinating and a bizarre irony to this is that with the internet, we came this idea of the democratization of all information and access for people. But with so much unfortunate various groups vying for power and interest in whatever it might be, that you have this misinformation or disinformation or whatever you want to call it. So you can't necessarily prove that something happened. So now we're going back to this idea that you're going to have to go to trusted sources that will have maybe that cryptographic signature, a signature that says, yes, we are this group, we are the Associated Press, and we believe this, and this is our article, and it is authenticated. So the idea that we have to go from what seemed like a really cool idea that we all could contribute to the mass amount of information to now saying, yeah, that's not working. And now we have to go back to the tried and true, trusted old school information sources. It's a little annoying, but I respect it and I understand it. And that's just the way that things have gone. So just
Yeah,
my 2 cents.
no, it's like really complicated. And one of the things I'm excited about ID is like the idea of like a KYC free proof of identity, right? So we're like talking about Sybil resistance, like spam all over the internet, and like if you can just spin up new fake accounts all the time to try to get like
Followers,
to
everything. Yeah.
promote misinformation
Yeah.
intentionally, to like we can assume most people out there are good actors. It's like, so if you can just contain the malicious actors with like solutions that preserve people's privacy, right? We're not trying to like take pictures of everyone and have them so we own them. What we're trying to do is provide a provably private data management system that also makes sure that people just can't go around abusing it. So we can sort of say like, hey, this is a user. We can track this user's history. They can't just like do bad stuff, start a new account. It's like, and solutions in that vein, I'm pretty excited about, and I think that they could really help like a lot of our digital like world.
No, I couldn't agree more. Jesse, thank you so much for your time, your expertise. Really appreciate it. I love the perspective. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It was fun chatting.
Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.